Alzheimer's is a very debilitating disease. It's horrible to see.
Have you seen those faces of people who see you, but they don't see you? They're gone. And my mother wasn't there.
I found out that they're frightened. When they're alone, they're frightened. That's why they follow you. So you learn a lot when somebody has dementia and Alzheimer's.
The young guy that saw him said, you know, you have Alzheimer's and you also have, you know, some multi-infarct dementia, and I recommend that you no longer drive. And I lost it. But Dad says, well, you know, if that's what he thinks, he says, I certainly don't want to hurt anyone, so I just won't drive.
All of a sudden, Alzheimer's came, and at first we didn't know what it was. I just knew something was wrong. We took her to some doctors in Michigan. Then we found out about a geriatric type doctor who studied Alzheimer's. We're thankful that it's a slower progression of Alzheimer's with our mother.
When we realized she was going to the doctor for a stomach bowel condition she thought sure she had, and she was at the doctor's 5 times in 2 weeks. Now there's something wrong there because they couldn't find anything, and I had to tell her. He asked if she had had any signs of dementia. Of course, I took that as a kind of an insult. What, my family, me? You know, it's not something we do.
For me, I was in denial. It's a very common thing to happen for people, but you really, really need to seek help.
She'd go to the kitchen and start to do the dishes, and the next thing I'd know, she'd be sitting in the living room, and the dishes weren't done. I was really discouraged because she had this little problem and that little problem. She also wouldn't ever tell me if she was sick. She ended up with pneumonia and a completely full lung one time, and all I knew was that she needed to take a nap in the afternoon. She didn't usually nap.
Along the way that we noticed a lot of crying. She just didn't understand, didn't know what was going on, couldn't do things. Math was her forte. She could put numbers together, she could run businesses. I mean, she was that good. And then when she could no longer keep her monthly bills, we knew there too something was wrong. So it was time then for us to step in.
It's not just forgetfulness, we all have moments like that, but it's actually losing pieces of your brain, pieces of yourself. It starts with short-term memory loss, which is really the short-term memory is the ability to, you know, remember. If you say something to me right now, it's my ability to remember it or learn something new. And it progresses differently for each person. Some people progress very quickly, other people it can take several decades. But it is a progressive disease where eventually the person loses the ability to remember anything, loses the ability to care for oneself, and it does always end in death, unfortunately. Otherwise, the journey is different for everybody.
Sat down.
Oh, you sat down now, Mother. You sat down
I
now.
want to go now.
Yeah, we'll go and make more.
It's burning.
No, there's nothing burning, Mother. There's nothing burning.
When you're a caregiver of somebody with dementia, is accepting that person's reality and going to their reality, we tend to want to bring them back to our reality, correct them all the time, confront them. And there is nothing to be gained by correcting somebody with dementia or confronting them, and there is everything to be lost. It's much better to just join them in their reality. If they're doing well with it and they're not upset, so what if they think it's 1969 and they're back on the farm? Nobody is being harmed by that. they think they're back in the factory where they worked as a young person, start talking about that factory work. You don't have to agree with them. You just start talking about whatever the subject is, that they're, or whatever the reality is that they're in. But if we correct them and tell them that, no, that isn't true, that isn't where you're at, that's not possible, that happened many years ago, you just confuse them all the more, you frighten them. That's when we're going to get those behaviors, even sometimes very catastrophic behaviors. If she thinks she's a young girl and she's looking for her mother, and you just tell her her mother died 10 years ago, it's like breaking the news for the first time. I think sometimes we need to stop and think about how that feels. The last time that any of us got devastating news that something awful happened to a loved one. Think about how we felt then. The shock, the knot in your stomach, the heart beating, the hands shaking, anger and fear and all the emotions probably known to man stuck in the pit of your stomach. What would be better, instead of correcting her when she says, I want my mother, say, you must love your mother very much. Your mother, she's a piano teacher, isn't she? Use information that you know. And pretty soon you're talking about piano lessons, and then you're talking about rock and roll music and how crazy the kids are nowadays, and then you're talking about Elvis Presley, and before you know it, you're at the county fair riding the merry-go-round, and in a few minutes you're cruising down the Mississippi on a riverboat. You just distract them away from that topic. She's upset she can't find her mother. You just agreed with her. You talk about her mother. You gradually distract to another topic until she's so far away from that.
You worked at Montgomery Ward's, didn't you? Did you work at Montgomery Ward's?
Sure.
Oh, tell me about it.
Did you work there?
I worked at Sears.
Oh,
Tell me about it.
well, Montgomery Ward's is fine.
Huh? How long did you work?
Well, I only came in for the holiday, just as a vacation.
Oh. So then you got to buy lots of fun things too, right?
Oh, I could buy whatever I want. Well, I've always had it in. My father works he works up in he's a traffic manager in the main office.
Oh.
Up there.
Mary, do you want to sit in your chair right here? No, I want to go home. You want to go home? Okay, we just made supper though.
Okay.
Oh. You want to stay for a little bit? We just made supper.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Alarm. We'll go sit down for a little bit.
When someone's looking for their mother or wanting to go home, mother and home oftentimes to most of us means comfort, safety.
For my mother anyway, home, that's what she has wanted ever since the accident, and it's not home anymore because you ask them about their home. For a while, I thought, well, maybe she was going to tell me about the home she grew up in, but I think home is a feeling, a comfort. I was in control. I want home the way it was, before the accident. I want to go home. I want everything to go away.